What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Chasing 100 Now. Today, with my man Shaquille, we got a great topic for you, and it affects all of us. It's called fear. It's the dirty four-letter word that's the biggest dream killer that's ever existed in humanity.
Absolutely. Yes.
So we're gonna break it down like you've never seen a video like this before. We're gonna break down fear, not only what problems it causes, what is it, but also solutions. You ready?
Let's go.
Let's do this, Shaq. Okay, first of all, you gotta obviously start off by defining fear. Okay, so we have to define it. So what fear is, it's an unpleasant emotion, right? That comes from when we believe that something's dangerous,
Right.
okay, or that something's going to do us harm. Okay, so it's an unpleasant feeling.
Right? Yeah, I think it is. Sure.
So Shaq, this is something naturally embedded in us, right, by God, because it actually helps us. And let me explain how. Okay, now this is obviously our focus of our podcast, but by nature, having fear, actually what it does is it causes a rush of adrenaline in our body, and it allows us to protect ourselves from potential harm. So in the era of the caveman, if I'm going through the forest and I hear rustling and I see a tiger, adrenaline's gonna kick in, fear is gonna kick in, and I'm gonna run, right? Or today you could say, if I'm crossing a street, I look to my left and I hear a honk and a car's coming, that fear is gonna cause adrenaline to shoot in my body and I jump out the way. So in that way, fear is something that God's put in us that is there to help us.
Right.
So fear is innately part of us, part of our being, but it causes a lot of problems. So how is fear, now we talked about how it's good, how is it a problem?
So there are a lot more reasons why it's bad than it's good. So the first thing is, me and Adnan like to talk about chasing your 100, which means basically living your best life. But when you're afraid, you can't chase your 100. You're chasing more of your 10 or your 5. You're just robbing yourself of your potential.
It's kind of like making your life, instead of being this giant,
It makes it small.
amazing life, it makes it a small life. Yeah.
There's the fear of flying. Now, if you're afraid of flying, you're not going to see a lot of countries. You're going to be stuck in your own little small town. There's the fear of public speaking. This is bad because you're not going to meet as many people. You're not going to make as many connections. And if you run a business, it's definitely going to hinder your business also.
And even moving up the corporate ladder.
Go up the corporate ladder, yeah. If you can't speak in front of people, you're going nowhere. There's the fear of loneliness, and even animals have this feeling. That's why animals would rather be in a pack by themselves. It goes back to what you talk about. It's for survival. You're not going to starve. Other animals aren't going to attack you. Then there's the fear of not being loved, and this is really a big deal for teenage people because you have Instagram, you have these fake lives on Instagram, on TikTok, and everyone feels like they don't measure up, especially children. Even though these people on Instagram are carefully curated, these aren't even their real lives. So a lot of, especially younger people, they feel they can't live up, they can't be part of the in crowd, but this crowd doesn't even exist.
Yeah, you were telling me something about, like, I remember you used to look up to Brad Pitt a lot. Yeah, Fight Club, Brad. You gotta not 7 years in Tibet. Brad Pitt.
Fight Club Brad Pitt. He was obviously in great shape. I wanted to be in shape like him. I started dressing like him. And it's hero worship, which is the worst thing you can do because remember, all you're seeing is a carefully curated image of the person. Later on, I found out Brad Pitt was a raging alcoholic. He had problems with his kids. His whole life was a big mess. So we don't want to do hero worship because once again, the reality you're seeing is not the reality. So Adnan, what other fears are there?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's fear of criticism, right? There's fear of change. There's fear of failure. There's fear of old age. There's fear of death. This is all based on research. These are the biggest fears that Americans have. And I mentioned a lot of it in Chasing 100.
Great book. Great book, guys. So what other fears are there, Adnan?
So there's fear of criticism.
Okay.
Right.
So how does that cause a problem?
Well, I mean, that's a huge problem because if you're worried about what people are going to say and being criticized, you're going to end up doing nothing in life because you're always going to get criticized.
No matter what.
No matter what you do. And that leads me to the next one, which is fear of change, right?
That's most people.
That's most people. They
That
don't.
was me for the longest time.
To be honest with you, it's something natural within us, right? Meaning our brain wants to, when we do things over and over again, it becomes a habit. And then we do it without thinking, which saves our brain energy,
Which is great.
right? So by default, we want to go into automatic mode, right? So we just do the same thing every day because it's easy, right? It's less burden on our thinking and our brains. The problem with that is if you don't change, right, you don't grow. Nothing changes. You live the same life forever, right? And that's not, again, like you said, it's chasing 10.
Yeah. It's not a growth mindset.
Exactly. I mean, you're never going to grow if you don't change, right? So that's the problem with fear of change. And you have the fear of failure, right? That's huge. A lot of people don't make excuses. They'll say, well, the market's not right. This isn't right. I don't have enough savings. I don't do this, blah, 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 right? But really, they're afraid to fail because they don't want, again, it's kind of tied into criticism.
Well, like I talked about in the past, guys, there is no failure. It's just learning. So they're actually afraid to learn. Because even if you make a bad stock pick or whatever, you're going to learn something from it.
Exactly.
So it's not even fear of failure. It's failure of learning, and no one should have this issue.
Yeah, but they don't see it like that.
They don't see it like that.
As learning, they see it as, oh, I'm going to look stupid. I'm going to look bad. I'm going to look foolish, right? So I know a lot of people who, for example, they're afraid to become entrepreneurs, right? They're miserable at their job, but they're afraid to become entrepreneurs. Why? Because they're afraid to fail. So instead of building this beautiful company, hiring a ton of people, just making a big impact in the world, you're okay with just being a cog in a machine, right, as an employee, because you're just quite frankly afraid to take that risk. Also, there's a fear of getting old, right, which is kind of silly.
A lot of people have that fear. In fact, most people.
I love getting older.
Sure.
Because I feel like I'm getting wiser. I'm understanding things more clearly. I mean, compared to when we were kids, how much more clarity do we have in life?
Well, look, let's be frank here. We also put the work in. Now, if you get older and you still live like a teenager, that's on you, man. That's on you. But if you actually grow as a person, start reading more, getting old is the best thing. That's why it's older and wiser. It's a good thing.
It's not good to be the old man at the club.
No.
You got to grow out of that eventually. There's also the fear of death. Now, the problem with that is obvious, right? Like you're not accepting what's inevitable again, just like getting old, right? And also when you fear death, you make decisions that are fear-based decisions and not hope-based decisions.
Right. So give me an example.
Like you said, for example, the fear of flying could be related to the fear of death.
True, yeah.
You're afraid of flying because you think you're going to die, right? And so that's going to limit your ability to get to know the world, to see other places, right? So the fear of death plays itself out in so many different ways. You don't do certain things because you're afraid something bad might happen to you and you might die, right? Now danger is different. If you're in a dangerous situation, that's different. That's understandable. But the vast majority is not dangerous. Right.
I mean, I can't remember the last time I was truly in danger. It's pretty rare.
It's rare, right? Even when you travel. A lot of people don't travel to certain countries because they're, oh my God, what?
Well, that's because of the propaganda that we hear on the news. Of course, I haven't been to near as many countries as Adnan, but I can tell you for a fact, everything negative you hear about most countries is 100% bullshit.
It's nonsense.
It's bullshit.
And there, people are great. Like Colombia. The first time I went to Colombia, I remember people were like, what? You're going to Colombia alone? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not afraid to get
Like there's machine guns in the middle of the street.
You're not afraid to get kidnapped, ransom, out for money. You're not afraid to, some drug cartel is going to pick you up.
Bro, I've heard the same thing about Mexico City, about Rio. Let me tell you something. You can go to their downtowns in the middle of the night by yourself. It's safer than Houston, Texas.
It's 100%. I always tell people that. I tell people all the time. You ask me about Colombia. I've been robbed at gunpoint here, not there. Right. Yeah, right.
Exactly. So what are some solutions for all these fears?
Okay. So before we get into solutions, Shaq, I want to share with you guys one principle of how to even look at fear in a way that I've never seen or heard before. Now, it's interesting because when you look at fear, God right, says that those who have faith and do good, on them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. Okay? Now, in another instance, the devil promises poverty, where God promises blessings. So when I look at fear, to me, it's a tool of the devil to keep us limited and small in life.
Yeah, you know, I've never heard of that, but I do agree with it now that you explained it like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is, right? The devil wants us to live limited. He doesn't want us thriving. He doesn't want us chasing our 100. He wants us chasing our 10.
Yeah.
That's his role, to limit us, to make us small, right? And so the devil promises...
You know, I hate to cut you off, but the way you're putting it, right, with if you're afraid of these things, it's almost like you don't have faith in God that these things can actually occur. They can actually happen. Yeah. You're taking the devil's side like, yeah, you're right, I can't do shit. As opposed to God's bountiful, like, hey guys, you got me, we can do anything we want.
Exactly, because who are we dealing with? God can help us do anything, right? So to me, fear versus faith is really evil versus good.
Yeah.
It's those two opposing factors in life. And so when I look at fear, I hate fear. Like, it bothers me. If I'm afraid of something, I need to do it because it bugs me. I don't want to be afraid of anything. I don't want to let anything control me.
That makes sense.
Nothing. That's why I don't drink alcohol. That's why I don't take drugs. I don't want even fear to control me.
Right.
I want to live my life based on faith and God's blessings rather than fear and the devil wanting to limit me. No, man, I want to live big. So yeah, I want to share that concept because I've never heard that before.
I haven't either. So where'd you get the concept from? Just by reading from the good books?
Yeah, just reading, yeah. So Shaq, tell me a little bit about solutions. Guys, one thing about this podcast is we're very practical. We're pragmatic. We offer real life solutions. So give me some solutions, Shaq.
Okay, so a couple of solutions for the fear of flying and the fear of public speaking. So you have to understand something. When we have fear and when we're excited, the same things are happening in our body. Our palms get sweaty, our heart starts racing. The only difference is what our mind is going through. So we have to get our mind to change that fear to excitement. And I'll give you two examples. So let's say you're afraid of public speaking, right? So, and this is all backed by science. I've actually tried it. It does work. I'm afraid to speak publicly, right? So what I need to do is I need to imagine myself leaving that speech and everyone's cheering. I just did a great job. I'm going to picture the immediate aftermath of doing a great job. Make that picture in my head. Then I'm going to do a countdown in my head, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's going to switch the gears in my mind to turn fear into excitement, pop that picture in my head, and then go out and make that speech.
That's a great point. So it's the same energy.
It's the same energy. You're not changing. You're just changing the way your mind works. Number two, let's say we're trying to get on a plane and we're afraid of flying. Same concept. Let's say I'm going to Minnesota to meet my cousins, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to picture myself in Minnesota, hang out with my cousins, having a great time, hanging out with my nieces and nephews. That's the picture I'm putting in my head. Time to get on the plane, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That mental shift happens in my mind. Fear is now excitement. And I have that picture in my head now that I saved from before. I'm going to go right on that plane and we're going to do great. Awesome. So I know you have some solutions to it now.
Yeah. So, these are actually two of fears that I had growing up. So one is fear of heights, right? I grew up in Houston, Texas, which is where we are now. It's flat, right? Literally, we have no heights. So I didn't want that to control me.
Sure.
So what I did was one night, I went actually to the roof of a building, right, with a buddy of mine. And I actually stood like, not in a dangerous way, but just, there was a wall and I stood next to the wall and I forced myself to look down. And I forced myself to calm myself down, right? Just because I just didn't want that to control me. So I like to, a lot of times in fear, one of the best ways to deal with fear is to confront it.
So what you just mentioned is actually incredible because I was reading about exposure therapy. Now, this is not for everyone. What Anand did is actually kind of brave. But they said in exposure therapy, if you bring a friend along, it actually makes it easier.
Yeah.
For that friend. But a positive friend.
Yeah.
Not some assholes who's going to be like, hey, you don't jump, you're going to fall, you're going to kill yourself. You need a supportive friend. So that's actually exposure therapy. And we're doing that without even knowing the concept. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I just felt like like I said, I don't like things controlling me. So I didn't want that to control me. because now I love climbing mountains. I love doing all this stuff that requires heights, right? So it's not an issue at all anymore, honestly. Now the second thing is closed spaces, right? So I don't like closed spaces. I like to be in the open. So even like elevators. Like I didn't grow up using elevators. I think the first elevator I ever used was maybe in college.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, I'm serious.
This was done on purpose?
No, I just never used it growing up. I just never needed elevators. We always had one story type of, or I took the stairs, right?
But I'm sure you went to hotels and stuff, right?
No, why would I go to a hotel? You stupid. I was a kid. I'm talking about a kid when I was.
Bro, I knew you when you were a kid in junior high, high school. We went to dinners and stuff in hotels. What did you do? Took the stairs?
Yeah, I took the stairs. Yeah. My point being is that I didn't like closed spaces like elevators. I would kind of freak out when that door would close. I'd be like, I'd get so, But what I realized is, the way I got over it was to talk to myself, to tell myself, hey, this is so normal. Like, you're being stupid. You're going to be there fine. Everyone in the whole world takes elevators all day, every day. There's millions of them around the world. Like, I just had to tell myself, like, how stupid I was being. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Right. And then I learned how to just calm myself down, breathe, right? Matter of fact, one time I got stuck in an elevator. It froze. And then, so what I had to do was sit down. Yeah. And I started breathing slowly. Okay. And then I was fine. But yeah, I mean, it was just something that I know I had to get over because, I knew it was going to limit me.
So there's a fear of loneliness that people have. Now, what is the solution to the fear of loneliness? So you have to reach out to people, right? We were talking about that. We actually need people. As much as you think you don't need people, you need to reach out to people. Now, if you're one of those people who, and there are people out there like this who can't reach out to people because they've burned all their bridges, they were an asshole. And I say there are people in my life who I never pick up the phone from for that exact reasons, and they might be lonely, but I don't really give a shit. Sorry. But
so the point is, first of all, don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. Okay. But we can still solve the solution because I've had people call me from the bottom of their heart and apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. You can always forgive me.
So if you were even that person, first of all, we don't want to be that person anymore. And so number two, reach out to these people who you've hurt and just give them an honest to goodness apology. And I'm telling you guys, people will accept and appreciate your apology. In fact, they'll respect you more. Whoever has done this to me, I have a newfound respect for these people.
Yes, because they recognize their error.
They recognize their error, and they're man enough. And in fact, I think a quote I told somebody once was like, what you did is one of the most manliest things I've ever seen. To sit here and admit you were wrong and be honest about it and be frank and being humble, that's one of the best things you can do. So there's no ever worry about feeling alone. We can overcome that.
Yeah. What about people that refuse to reach out to people out of pride? Say, well, they'll call me. I'm waiting. They have to call me.
Then you deserve to be alone. You deserve to be sad. You have negative energy. And we'll talk about this in the future. In the past, we talk about this. Stay away from negative energy people as much as you can. They'll suck the life out of you and they'll make you not be positive.
Relationships require you to be humble, right? And require investment. Right? That's what people don't understand. Like people think relationships just land on your head, or like great friendships land on your lap, or great, relationship with a loved one. All of it is work. It's all an investment. Right?
We'll have a podcast in the future about happiness, but that goes back to contribution. That brings happiness. So even in a relationship, there has to be a contribution on your part. You can't just take and expect it to work. That's not going to work out.
Exactly. So what else, Shaq?
So there's the fear of not being loved. So this happens to a lot of people who are single, who are in their 20s, 30s, and they say, oh, I just can't ever get married. Well, number one, you need to get offline. I tell everyone, get off the online dating apps. So number one, they're skewed against men. We all know this. There are a lot more men on there, and all these women are swiping left on you, right? If you actually said hello to them in person, they would actually be receptive. Yeah. But the thing is, on these apps, women get these inflated egos because every guy, and if you don't know this, I'm sorry, I'm breaking this news to you, guys are desperate and they're sick. They'll try to have a relationship with anything or anybody. That's how most men are wired, okay?
A lot of men.
So what a woman doesn't understand, if she has 1,000 matches,
she's hot shit.
Yeah, but it's not 1,000 matches to marry you.
Yeah, exactly.
None of them want to marry you.
Yeah.
They just want cheap thrills. So their ego gets brought. So apps are bad for men because they make them feel worthless, and they're bad for women because they overinflate what they really are. So both men and women who are like this, you need to get out in public, meet people. If you don't like going to public bars and clubs, there are groups now. There are groups of every religion, Muslim, Christian, there are Muslim Christian groups at the mosque, at the church. You can meet decent people. It's not that big. But the thing is, you have to leave the house. And if you are a guy and you're 300 pounds, you dress like a slob, and you
smell bad.
Your default saying is women are bitches. Yeah. No, you just look like trash. Why would anyone want to be with you?
Let's be real. I mean, it's true. It's true. It's like, bro, come on, man. Like,
it doesn't take much to work out for your health too. Yeah. If you're planning on having a family, you want to be around, work out, get some nice clothes that fit. They don't have to be expensive. Shave, take a shower, and women, same thing. If you are, 30 years old or whatever, and you're 40, 50 pounds overweight, you're going to have less options, okay?
Sure. I mean, that's just reality.
That's just reality.
We're not talking nonsense, the stupidity that you hear in the world today. It actually makes a difference.
So dress nice, get in shape for yourself and for, just for overall health, and get yourself out there. Like I said, there are a lot of guys out there who are ready to meet women. But the online thing, I think it's proven it's just not working. It's more of anything. This is a hookup culture. Yeah, women feel heartbroken because these guys just take off after they get their business done. Yeah. And a lot of men feel terrible because they can't even get a match.
Yeah. So you got to get out there. You got to get out there. You got to live in guys, let's get back to living in the real world.
Adnan, we talked about some more fears. I think the fear of criticism, how do we get over that?
Yeah. Okay, so the fear of criticism. First of all, you have to get over it if you're going to do anything, right? Worth it in life, right? When you went out and you started doing your online content, you got criticized, you got made fun of.
And it's okay.
When I, got divorced at a young age, or when I moved to Colombia out of nowhere, I mean, there's a lot of people talking shit, right? So much, right? Criticism. But, to me, the way I get over it, Shaquille, is I know who I am, and I'm right with God.
That's all.
I just need to be right with God.
That's it.
And I have to own up to my own stuff, right? Like, I'm very honest with myself. There's a lot of people that are delusional nowadays, right? They're not honest with themselves. Like, if I'm doing something right or wrong, I have to be honest with myself, correct myself when I commit errors, right? But I know who I am. I don't care what people say. I've had family members criticize me. I mean, like, harshly, right? And we all do. We all have family members. That one random, whether it's uncle or brother or cousin or 10, always talking shit about your life, right? Look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I know who I am. I try to be right with God, and that's it.
So remember, I'm going to interject here. Yeah. So I do the same thing, but I never get upset because I look through everyone's perspective, right? Okay. So the person who's usually criticizing me, they're not living out their dreams. Exactly. In fact, I've never met a person that lived out their dreams that criticized me or Adnan ever.
So true. That's so true. So true.
Get mad. So I'm like, okay, if I sit in their body, this is my life. I'm not fulfilling my passion. I live a ho-hum life. I'm going to be in a negative state of mind. Yeah. I can see why I would criticize Adnan or criticize Shaquille. So I'm not mad because the problem people make is they compare other people to you. Yeah. Okay, so I wouldn't do that, but I'm not holding him to my standards because he's a different person. I can look at it through his eyes. Yeah. I don't get upset. You're right. As long as we're right with God, that's all that matters, man.
That's all that matters, man. So that's how I kind of deal with fear of criticism, right? Okay. I just don't, it doesn't bother me one way or the other. So fear of failure, okay, again, you're not going to do anything worth a damn in life if you're worried about failure. I mean, there literally is no one in existence in the history of humanity that hasn't failed along the process, along the journey. That's part of the journey. As a matter of fact, when I fail or when I try something and it doesn't work, I look at it as God's way of telling me to make a shift, to adjust, to adapt. right? To be agile. That's God's way of telling me, hey, that's not the right path. You need to go on a different path, right? And so for me, there's no such thing as failure. It doesn't, I mean, even if I quote unquote fail or I have a goal, I don't reach it, okay, what do I have to change? What do I have to adjust, right? What did I learn? What did I learn when I failed?
We only fail when we quit. And that's the problem. People don't want to change.
Keep going.
They don't want to change. If you fail, which is not failing, it's just learning, then we change something. Then you just try something different. That's all.
Exactly.
In fact, failing is the best thing that could possibly happen because it cuts the time that we're wasting going in the wrong direction.
Learn lessons quickly.
Quickly, yes.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I you know my business, all my clients are super uber successful entrepreneurs. Man, every single one of them went through failure after failure after failure, and then they won.
If you give up, you're never going to make it.
I mean, it's part of the journey. I welcome it. So the next one is fear of change. This is another interesting one. It's also kind of natural, as I mentioned before. The body wants to go into default because it's easier, right? And so that's why you see people who haven't changed anything for 20 years. You meet them 20 years later, they're literally exactly the same, right? In terms of just not wanting to change anything. Now, for me, I understand that growth requires change. I can't grow and not change something. It's impossible, right? Like look at a plant when it grows, right? It grows through change, right? That's how it grows. It changes. And so as a human being, chasing my 100, our philosophy in life is constant growth, which means constant change, right? And so you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I put myself in uncomfortable situations on purpose because I need to push. I need to try something new. I need to do something I haven't done before.
We talk about that. It's called being comfortable being uncomfortable. Okay, I have a solution for the fear of getting old. First of all, it's a ridiculous fear, right? Getting old is a good thing. It means you're not dead. You know, my entire life, yeah, it's true. My entire life, when I hit 30, oh, Shaquille, you know, you're not married yet. Aren't you afraid of getting old? No. When I hit 40, oh, you don't have any kids yet. Are you afraid? I go, no. When I hit 50, no one says that anymore. So what you have to understand, it's all a mindset. Yeah. And I don't know what was in me, but I never cared about getting old. Because I was like, okay, I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to work out. I'm going to do whatever I can. And as long as God gives me health, I might age chronologically, but I'm not going to age physically. Yeah. You can't stop aging chronologically, but you can stop aging physically. There are 30-year-old people who are 60 years old due to their health. So there's no reason to this is coming from somebody who is over 50 now. There's no reason to be afraid of it. Just take care of yourself. And if you're like me, Adnan, constantly reading and learning, you just become a much better version of yourself.
Absolutely.
In fact, I would say instead of being afraid of getting old, look forward to it, man.
I love it.
Look forward to it.
I tell all these young guys, like, young guys I know, I'm like, guys, your 40s are amazing, bro.
Exactly.
Our freaking 40s are amazing. If you put in the work. If you put in the work.
That's always important.
Because that's the thing. If you grind in your 20s and 30s and really build, by the time you're 40s, you can start to really, enjoy some of the fruits of your labor.
Absolutely.
Right? So good point. Good point. Okay. Now, also, I wanted to talk about the fear of death. Okay. That's the biggest one, usually, right? And it's interesting because it's like fearing the inevitable, right?
We're all going to die.
Yeah. I mean, the thing for me, the way I got over it was I accepted the inevitability of it, right? Being afraid of something I know it's going to happen doesn't make logical sense to me, right? And so for me, I actually thought about it. I thought about it. Like, okay. I thought about like, okay, I'm going to die at some point, right? I know that for a fact. I accepted it wholeheartedly. Like, you know what? I'm going to die. So I thought about it and I thought, okay, when I'm close to dying, how do I want to look back at my life? And so the acceptance of death taught me how I want to live.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does.
Right? So when you accept death, guys, then you really focus in on, man, my time is limited. I don't know how much time I got left. So today's got to be awesome. Next week has to be awesome. Like this year has to be, that trip I wanted to take, that I was going to take in 20 years when I retire, I'm going to fucking take it this year. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm going to make the most of it.
So you live with a sense of positive urgency.
Yeah, absolutely. Time is short. It's not promised. It's not, we don't know, right? What we do know is that we are going to die. I'm going to die. And I'm not, duh. My point is, okay, did I really live? Did I live the life that I wanted to live?
So if you were to pass away tomorrow, how would you answer that question? Have you lived the life you wanted to live?
So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because right now I would say no, not yet. But I'm thoroughly in the process. Meaning, if it happened, I would accept it as God's will. So I'm cool with it. But have I really accomplished everything I want to? No. But I tell you what, I'm on the journey, and my path is clear.
God willing, yeah.
So it's just a matter of time, right? So that's a good question that you asked. So I think the thing is, most people, when you ask that question, they're like, oh shit, I'm not doing anything that I really would want to do in life. I'm living a completely different life than I should be living.
You're living in a prison, man. And we'll have the happiness episode soon, and I will actually talk about, it's kind of like your deathbed exercise. I'll explain something in that episode about happiness and how I deal with the death and feelings of happiness. But yeah, to live a life to where you're not doing anything you're passionate about, and it sounds worse than jail to me, man.
They're already dead.
They're already dead inside. They're just kind of moving along. And we all know people are just kind of breathing and living, but they're not really living life.
Yeah. And that's the opposite of what we're teaching here. Like, we want everyone, the reason why we're even doing this, the reason why I wrote the book, the reason why we're doing this podcast is because we want everyone out there to really go for it, man. To really just, like gozar, they say in Spanish, is like, to really suck up, like make the most of it, man.
And a lot of people, and the problem with a lot of people is they look at the past with the regret. No, look at the past with gratitude.
Yes,
Everything happened in your life for a reason. Whether you understand it or not, to get you where you are now. Do not waste time in the past, live in the present, and plan for the future. A plan for that positive, successful future. That's why you gotta live life.
That's it, guys. So when it comes to this episode, live fearless, or try to live as fearless as possible. Again, fear for me it takes me away from faith. It's not a positive thing. It's a bad thing, in my opinion. It's natural, but we want to avoid it as much as possible and live in faith.
You guys, look, if you have any questions, please message us on YouTube. And if you guys like this episode, please subscribe, share with people who it might help.
All right, guys. See you next time.